Hello and welcome to the Story Behind the Stories, your weekly look at the pages of the Neepawa Banner Press. Thank you very much for taking a little bit of your time and spending it right here on NACTV with us. I'm Eoin Devereux, news and sports reporter with the Banner Press, welcoming you, joined this week by the workhorse of this week's edition, Casper Wehrhahn. Casper, good to have you in.
Good to be here, and it's definitely good to have this paper done. This one kind of felt like a bit of a crazy one, Eoin.
Yeah, and good to have you in you're right about that, in another sense as well, because this is going to be a very Casper-heavy edition of the Story Behind the Stories. Last week, Ken and I were in here, and it seemed like it was a lot of my stuff that was going on, and that's the way it is in this industry from time to time. Some weeks it's feast, some weeks it's famine, and fortunately, Casper, you had a lot of chases that you were looking to get that came through, and this is a very good paper with a lot of interesting sort of tidbits that you were able to collect for us this week. The first being a nice little pleasant surprise for Arts Forward Arts and Cultural Center right here in Neepawa. They've got a project they've got on the go, and they're getting a little bit of help from the province.
Yeah, so this was a very good story to be able to have come across our way and to cover it, because Arts Forward, it's a very important facility in the community. You need to have places that support arts and culture things and all sorts of stuff like that. And having been in the facility numerous times and actually having volunteered there in the past when I was a student, the kitchen's been the same for as long as I can remember, and it's good, it's held up, but there's improvements that can be made, that they want to make it even better than it currently is, and to make it more accessible as well. The big driving force in them actually wanting to do this renovation was making it wheelchair accessible, so that's a major factor in this, and from the sounds of it, it's going to be really, really awesome. I'm very excited to see how it turns out.
Oh, no, most definitely. And it's great to see that the province is stepping up and supporting in this way. Now, part of the program in which Arts Forward and as well Beautiful Plains Museum, Inc., the corporation essentially that operates and runs the Beautiful Plains Museum, received $25,000 as well. They're going to be gutting it for a garage essentially for their vintage fire truck there. We tried to get that story. We tried to chase that one down, but that's the situation sometimes you run into. Sometimes you're not able to get people before your deadline is done. So we hope to bring more specifics to you on that particular portion of this story in a future edition of the Banner Press. But this week we definitely focused on Arts Forward, and it's nice to see that they're getting that money. And it's kind of interesting, Casper. Let's get a little political here. Let's have some fun with this now. It's kind of interesting that whenever there is an election happening in the year, the party in power, whomever they may be, always seems to be able to find those extra dollars here and there to distribute out of nowhere.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. I don't know. Maybe in part it can be for wanting people to buy votes essentially, or maybe it is coincidence. I don't really know. It could be a bit of both.
It's one of those
Who's to say?
It's one of those strange coincidences that seems to happen every 4 years. It's funny about that.
Yeah.
It's like the Olympics. Perhaps that's it. The budget Olympics have come through for us this year. But again, like I'm not taking a shot at the party in power, because quite honestly, opposition who have been in power before have done pretty much the exact same thing when they've had the opportunity. I'm old enough to have seen this rodeo come through town a few times, Casper, and none of this is new and innovative in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
But it's nice every once in a while for a community group that does so much good, like Arts Forward, like Beautiful Plains, and represents a community like Neepawa as positively as they do, to get a little bit of a helping hand. That's a nice step in the right direction, I say.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And a big thing about this as well, of course, we've covered this as a story in the past as its own thing, but Arts Forward is a licensed commercial kitchen. So they're working to make sure that all the upgrades and all of that are kept up to code with that as well. So it will continue to be a commercial kitchen. So there's a few businesses that use that kitchen to, well, run their business. They make their food in there and all that sorts of stuff. So there's a lot of different facets that Arts Forward covers. You know, singing, dancing, physical like paintings and all that, sculptures, cooking. Yep. It's very extensive, and it's great to have that here.
You know what I like is going to happen from this funding as well is, and again, I spoke to Yvonne on some separate things as well, as she is a member of the council, but she also is representative with Arts Forward. I was speaking to Yvonne about that, and she was talking about how important it was, the inclusivity of it, because for individuals that deal with handicaps or disabilities or whatever, mind you, the accessibility into that portion of the building is not where it could be. So that she was really hyped about the fact that that was going to make things more inclusive for people in that way.
Exactly, yeah. It's definitely been a big goal of theirs to make all of their programs, diverse and inclusive. And I feel like I've seen that from them with all the different artists that they bring in. And the different programs, and definitely with what they're aiming to do here. And yeah, it's just going to be incredible all around. Another bonus for them, which I hadn't really thought about, was the fact that they're seeking to put in a washer and dryer, just apartment size, because they don't actually have anything like that at that facility. And, arts, cooking, it's messy. So any aprons that they have in stock there, they have to be taken actually to Yvonne's house to then be cleaned and then, brought back. But this way they're going to be able to keep that in there, and they can just take care of it during business hour.
That's really nice. And that's, God, that's such an unfortunate thing. There's so many people who like to volunteer and like to support organizations, not only just here in Neepawa, but nationally, worldwide. But they're always giving, like, this is an example of it, taking these things home and doing it in your own wash type thing. That's such an, I won't say inconvenience, but it just shows the above and beyond so many volunteers are willing to do. They're willing to take from themselves and give to others. That's the personification of a volunteer, someone who volunteers their time, their support, their passion, their everything. I mean, we do take that for granted from time to time, I think, as a society. It's good to see it. It's nice to see it.
Yeah, because, it is a lot of hard work to do things like this, both in just if you're planning something or helping run something, whatever. And, it takes time. It takes time. And so whatever else you have going on in the day, if you have something else, you have to factor in for that stuff as well. So it's a lot, and I definitely appreciate everyone who goes out and does things like this.
You know what I find interesting? We're going to get into a broader scope here. I'm going to bring up the Arts and in Sport in Community Fund, which is the provincial fund that distributed all this money to all these different organizations, non-profit organizations. And there is going to be another deadline coming up for mid-April, I believe, where organizations can obviously put in submissions for more support in this way. And I bring this up because when I went through the list, Casper, and we talked about this in the back, and I brought it up with Ken Waddell in the back, is that there were a few groups in there that I found were very interesting. It was like, wow, that's thinking outside the box. One of which is this I found hilarious. The Flin Flon Bombers Junior A Hockey Club received a grant in the same category as Arts Forward, a grant for just under $25,000 for a new press box, new radio broadcast booth, and new sort of luxury booth for fans and all of that. And it was like, I found that hilarious for the pure simple fact that it was a hockey team that did it, and there was no other hockey team. There was no hockey team whatsoever in the Manitoba Junior Hockey League that put in the request to this Manitoba fund. But there was a hockey team that plays in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League that put into the Manitoba Fund and was accepted. I found that utterly hilarious and sad all at once.
Yeah, that was a very sort of interesting thing to come across, with it being included in the Saskatchewan League. But, I think if more teams look at this, they can do some really impressive things.
Yeah. And again, don't get me wrong, as most of us should know, Flin Flon is, for the majority of the community, within the boundaries of Manitoba.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, the Whitney Forum in which they play is actually in Manitoba. It's like 65% of it is in Manitoba, 35% of it or so is in Saskatchewan. It might be a little bit more. It's right on the border. It's like Lloydminster out of Saskatchewan and Alberta, only on a smaller scale. But that cracked me up. That genuinely cracked me up. So if you're a representative for a nonprofit who watches this show on a regular basis, please remember, mid-April is when the deadline occurs. There is still opportunity for you and your organization to get some support for whatever you're thinking of doing. And please give it some thought. Let's not give it to Flin Flon. Come on.
Darn Flin Flon.
And I'm from the north. I was raised in Thompson, and there was a little bit of a rivalry, and by little I mean a huge rivalry between Thompson, Flin Flon, and the Paw. I mean, we had that little northern thing going there. So, we can't let those Flin Flonians get the best of us. But again, kudos, if more power to them if they were able to do it. And the other one I thought was interesting as well was the town of Swan River is going to be receiving about $3.1 million from this fund. A 50% shared commitment. They put up 3.1 and the province put up 3.1 for a complete and utter community arena upgrade. Oh my God. That's just imagine what we could do with that type of money around here.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that is outstanding. Like, they obviously would have had to build up a lot to their portion of the funds for that, but that's mind-boggling. That's incredible.
Yeah. And again, don't get me wrong. Like I said, it's apples and oranges. The arena in Swan River is run by the community. It's run by the municipality. So that's different there. And their arena is much worse than ours. Mm-hmm. Ours, in the grand scheme of things, it might be old. It's older than me. It's barely older than me, but it is older. But it is still, for its age, it still really does a good job for our community. But, hopefully, again, if you're a local group and you think you need some extra cash, maybe get that application in before mid-April. I'm not saying, I'm just saying,
Just a little nudge.
I'm just thinking aloud here, Who couldn't use an extra $1 or $2?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, for sure. If you think you qualify for this, or if you're not sure if you qualify for it, look at the details, see what you can find out, and hopefully you get something.
That's right. Never hurts to ask.
Exactly.
But again, congratulations to Arts Forward. Very much looking forward to being able to continue to watch this story. We're hoping to get some pictures of the renovation as it goes on. We're hoping to get a full story on how things went successfully, hopefully, when it's all said and done. And let's segue now onto our second page. This was a big story, sort of for some people. It flew under the radar and then just out of nowhere popped up into everybody's sort of line of vision. It was the sale of Fresh Mart right here in Neepawa. There were some innuendo, some who's who or what's what, sort of in the coffee shops and in the shops around Neepawa talking, little whispers, and it finally came to fruition. It was a very quick sort of transition that went on. Ken Waddell has that story. You can find it on page 2. Relatively short story. The new owners, who are currently based out of Brandon, but will be moving to Neepawa area in the very near future. Very excited about the opportunity. They've done similar ventures in Minnedosa and in Brandon, so they do bring experience to it. It was just sort of one of those things, though, that just came out of nowhere, didn't it?
Yeah. I'm trying to recall now because it really did happen a little fast and quiet there. I think it might have been on, actually maybe the Monday? Or no, Friday. It was Friday, I believe, that Ken heard about it. And so he called the now former owner to see what was the scoop. And yeah, sure enough, something was happening, and we were going to have something in by Monday, and here we are.
And again, we're probably going to have a little more on this in the future, but we were very happy to be able to break that story in this week's edition of the Banner Press, page 2. Basic details right now, but I'm sure we're going to have a lot of elaboration as they settle into our community. All right, now, Casper, this is a story actually, for a time, we were actually going to think we were going to hold it for the week, but we had a little space open up, so we're able to get this out there ASAP. It's the Canada Reads event. It's something that's been going on nationally and gone on in Neepawa, and it's coming back again this year. Yeah,
it's good to have it going on again. I know it was on hiatus for a couple years during COVID, and then I think came back last year.
Yeah.
So it's continuing still, of course. Yeah, the Margaret Lawrence Home is going to be hosting a local version of the Canada Reads event. On the larger scale, it's 5 books, 5 debaters, and eventually they eliminate books. With the Margaret Lawrence Home, it's going to be more about generating discussion surrounding the books and hopefully getting people intrigued in them and wanting to check them out themselves. So that'll be happening on April 17th at Arts Forward again this year. That venue worked out really well for them in the previous year. And it'll be starting at 7 p.m. So it sounds like it'll be interesting. I was taking a look at each of the books, and we do have descriptions of them in the story there. And they look very interesting, I have to say. They come from a variety of authors and inspirations, and yeah, hopefully they pique people's interest, because it's a good selection in my estimation.
And again, it's a nice setup, the way you structured the page with that. Now, this is why you're going to have to pick up a physical copy of the Banner Press to be able to see it for yourself, or if you can't, go on to mywestman.ca and check out the PDF. I mean, just the visual aspect of it with the books all across the top like there, I'm glad you were able to sort of find that sort of visual. Like, that really pops off the page, I think.
Yeah, I was very pleased to be able to do that. I wasn't sure how much space was going to be on the page, but we had just a bit there, and it's like, oh, this is kind of an awkward layout. I don't know how I'm going to fill this in. And then I found the cover images for those on the Canada Reads page for CBC. So give credit to them, of course, and yeah, I was able to do a little bit of a setup there. I'm quite pleased with.
That's right. And now when we talk about we didn't know what we were going to have for space, whether we'd have too much or too little, this is the story behind the story we like to talk about right here on the show. Because every Wednesday in the afternoon, we send it off to Killarney, which does our publication, our physical printing of the paper. And up until Wednesday morning, we had no idea whether we were going to be 20 pages or 24 pages, because there were a few ads that were late coming in. We didn't know if they were going to come in. We didn't know if they were going to hold for a week. We didn't know whether they were going to advertise at all. So we were at that little point. A healthy paper, I've said this on the show many a time, a healthy paper should usually have around 40 to 50% advertising. For one page of the editorial, for one page of news, you should have one page of advertising. That is a healthy, strong, successful, progressive paper. Some papers, as Ken Waddell likes to bring up to us on many an occasion, some papers are not like that. Some papers will have 16 pages, and they'll have a page and a half of ads. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to shame any businesses or organizations or anything like that are like that. But we like to sort of keep that 50-50 if we can. So that means we do 20 pages. That means we got about between 9 and 10 pages of ads. So this week we thought we might be going over because we had a few we were waiting on, and we were, and by we, I mean me, I was stressing about, oh God, what are we gonna come up with for these other 4 pages, Casper? I've done jack squat this week.
No,
I've done diddly squat.
It definitely was very interesting on my end too. It was just like, I don't know when we're gonna find out what we're doing, if we're gonna be what we are right now, or if we're gonna extend it more. Am I gonna be able to find something to help pad this out a bit and, make it, good content? I don't know, but yeah, it worked out actually really well. So
That's right, and again, that's just part of the mystery of week to week. Last week's edition, I had 10 bylines. That meant 10 different stories that were in there. This week, I had 2. That's just the way the ball bounced this week. So you never know whether it's going to be feast or famine. And this week, I am starving. I'm not going to lie to you. Like I said, Casper stood up and stepped up on this one. Very appreciative. And you should be appreciative as well. So, but no, that's the way it was this week. And as for some of the ads that came in, there was one ad, color ad, and I'm not going to say which one. Again, not going to sort of shame anyone, but there was one ad we were very worried wasn't going to print well at all. There's a certain style of print and color that we need to be able to do in print. It'll look great on a computer screen, but it will print very muddy, very ugly on actual physical paper. And I was looking at that ad today, and again, I'm not going to say which one it was, but I got to admit, I am pleasantly surprised with how well it printed. It actually comes out a lot sharper than I thought it would. So
yeah, I was actually quite shocked by that as well. Obviously, it's still a little bit rough, just with the translation to actual print. But definitely, yeah, it turned out better than expected.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And these are the little quirks in a newspaper that happen each and every week where you got to deal with these types of things. But fortunately, for the most part, it's something you hopefully won't notice too much unless we let the cat out of the bag on a show like this, which I do on a constant basis. So, but all right, let's shift over. One more here. Yellowhead Center. Still on the go, still got the ice in. Casper, you got that, surprise, surprise. Casper, you got that story about the Yellowhead Center keeping their ice in place for just a little while longer.
Yeah, I was able to talk to Lindsay DeHolos there about what was going on at the Yellowhead, because, typically the ice comes out end of March, around there. But it's staying in until like mid-April. This was due to a few factors, including just scheduling for different events. So that is going to be in the Yellowhead for a bit longer now, and people will be able to perhaps rent the ice.
They'll be able to take advantage of that in a lot of interesting ways, though, it sounds like.
Yes, they will, because another thing that was involved in this update was actually the acquisition of insurance for the ice cycles. Now, that might sound familiar, and that's because we covered that story a while ago as well, sometime last year. I think February? February sounds about right. That was when they initially acquired the ice cycles, which are bikes that have been converted to use on the ice. But they hadn't been able to be used yet since they didn't have insurance. That has, of course, changed, and they are available for use now. So you have the chance to try that out before the ice comes out. Or if you do happen to miss your chance, well, there's always next year.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. If you get a chance, definitely see if you can rent one of them during their scheduled hours. I wrote the story initially about the ice bikes last year, as Casper just mentioned, and I jumped on one of them. I tried it out for a little bit. It's a little bit of a slight learning curve for a second or two, but once you get the hang of it, it is a lot of fun. Casper, you got to give one of those a go, most definitely.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it seems like a lot of fun. I can see people really, really enjoying those. And people did. Very recently, they had a group of folks come down there and give them a go. And I saw those photos on their social media, I believe it was. And yeah, smiles all around. They were having an absolute blast. Yeah.
Once again, they can check that out at the Yellowhead Center right here in Neepawa. Now we're going to get into some of the stuff I actually did do this week. A lot of stuff related to the Yellowhead Center. First off, a story I wrote about the Neepawa Tigers high school hockey team. They were in the Westman High School Hockey League Championship, the championship bracket, the top tier. They've had a magical run throughout the playoffs, and they were taking on the Swan Valley Tigers in the championship. Unfortunately, their fairy tale came to an end. They were defeated in the championship series 2-0 by Swan Valley. They just ran into a team that was on that hot streak, just like they were. But I wrote a story. You can find it on page 12 of this week's, and I do hope you'll take a moment. Even if you're not a fan of sports, take a moment to read it, because these young individuals put in so much time, so much dedication, so much passion into the game, as well as the volunteers associated with the team, their parents, the coaches. I hope you give a minute and give it a read. They deserve your consideration. They deserve to sort of get some acknowledgement, because they did something very special. The entire year was something special. They've had players who were at the top of scoring. Their coach was, Troy Brister was named our sports person of the year. All of it well-earned, well-deserved. So congratulations to them. It didn't play out the way you hoped, but you still brought something, and you represented Neepawa. That's the most important thing. You represented Neepawa in a positive manner on and off the ice. Congratulations on that. Now, also had some photos I took from the Neepawa Ballers League, the basketball league here in town. They had their championship weekend. It was huge. You can find some of those games. They're going to be broadcast or have been broadcast right here on NAC TV. You're going to have to check the listings for that to find the exact times. But it was exciting. It is so fun each year to be able to go down there and get and be a part of that atmosphere. It is tremendous. Neepawa is truly a basketball town through our high school teams and through this league. And it's great to be able to see that energy and to experience it for yourself. We've got a few pictures, didn't write up a story per se on it, but I do have the results of who won the senior division and the junior division in the paper with a bunch of pictures. So check that out. It was a lot of fun to be able to go down there. I wish I was able to cover it on a more consistent basis, Casper, but just it seems like during the winter, just certain things come up all the time that just I can't get down there as much as I'd like.
Yeah, definitely. It is a very busy season at that particular time for all things sports, really, in addition to anything else going on. So definitely very appreciative of being able to have the chance to showcase them in this week's paper.
One more showcase sports-wise. I wrote a story on the Minnedosa Bombers. They are in the Tiger Hills Hockey League Championship. Congratulations, they were able to win the division, defeating the Gladstone Lakers 3-1 in that series. They'll be taking on the Minneota Elkhorn Seahawks out of the West Division in the championship. We're going to have a lot more information. I plan on going to a game in Minnedosa this upcoming weekend, getting some pictures, getting some details on how that's playing out. So congratulations and best of luck to Minnedosa moving ahead. Now that's pretty much everything for us this week. I appreciate you taking a little time as always. If you have any story suggestions, any ideas whatsoever, you can always send them our way at news@neepawabanner.com. Or if you like, you can send it to us via the phone at 204-476-3401. I might not be able to speak to you directly, might be busy with some stuff, but we'll take the message and we'll see if we can get that taken care of. We try and get every story chased that we can. We've got a few in the figurative chamber right now we're trying to chase down for next week's edition. We're going to have so much on the go as the spring really seems to have been quite hectic. It's already hectic.
Oh, definitely. It's been quite intense so far, and it's good to have that momentum.
Oh, no, most definitely. Again, 476-3401, the number you can reach us at, or news@neepawabanner.com. So once again, Casper, good to have you in this week as always. Thank you.
Thank you again for having me, and I very much appreciate our audience joining us.
And thank you, yes, for taking your time right here on NAC TV and tuning in to the story behind the stories. Have a good week.